Hello, beverage enthusiasts. You're tuned into. We have the pleasure of uncorking tales straight from the vineyard with a distinguished guest. Located in the Hammonton, New Jersey area, Sharrott Winery is not just a producer of fine wines, but it's a testament to passion. Joining us today is none other than Larry Sharrott, the visionary behind this acclaimed establishment. From the vine to the glass, we'll explore the journey of crafting liquid poetry and the essence of what makes each sip an experience. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's embark on this delightful journey into the world of wine with our esteemed guest, Larry Sharrott. Larry, thanks for joining me here today in this beautiful environment, your winery.
Thanks so much.
Love it. I want to ask you a quick question. When I met you last summer, you talked about the climate of South Jersey being so conducive to the creation of fine wines. Give me a little bit of information on that. What is there about this climate?
One of the things that's really interesting is our climate is very similar to Bordeaux. Honestly, the only real difference, when we talk about temperatures, both wintertime and summertime, both are actually very important for grapevines. Our climate is very, very close. You could pretty much overlay the climate data on top of each other, and we're almost identical to Bordeaux. The difference comes in with rainfall. So we have a little bit more rainfall than Bordeaux during the growing season. We have almost the exact same if you look at it on a seasonal basis. But that's where we sometimes have some issues, is if we have a wetter season. Obviously our white wines do very well, but sometimes our red wines need a little bit of help. But we can grow Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot, which are the primary grapes in Bordeaux, and we make some great wines from them.
And you brought up a good point, because this was a wet winter. Not so much snow, but there was a lot of rain.
But it was very mild, which is good.
And it was mild, absolutely.
Yes, so,
now, what about soil quality? How about the soil between the two areas?
So that's another thing that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. Here in New Jersey, especially where my winery is located here in the outer coastal plain, we have mostly sandy soils that were laid down, over a million years, by the ocean currents. So we have very well drained soils, and that's very important for premium grape growing.
Okay.
And so in South Jersey, when we get those rainstorms that we get in the middle of the summer, so in July when that thunderstorm rolls through and drops 2 or 3 inches of rain down on top of us, grapes don't really like that. But within 2 or 3 days, all of that water is gone because it just drains right through our soils. So it's really good for grape growing.
What drew you into this industry? Did you always like wine? Were there other beverages that you were into? What was there about wine?
Oh, well, so I always really thought that just honestly fermentation science in general to me is really interesting. I've always really been into food as well, so this is sort of a natural extension. So for me, food and wine really work together, and turning grape juice into wine to me is just alchemy, right? You're taking this juice from this vine that kids love, right? It's just super sweet. It's 24% sugar in some cases. So I mean, it's much sweeter than a can of soda, and then turning it into a beautiful Bordeaux blend. I mean, what could be better?
That presents challenges. You talked about climate earlier. You talked about weather. Is that one of the biggest challenges that you face? What the weather is going to be like in any particular season?
Yeah. The old joke is that you have to grow things in collaboration with Mother Nature. But the problem is she's the senior partner.
That's a great line.
Yeah, so in some years, she's working with you and everything's going great, and in other years, not so much.
My. Well, the last few winters have been a bit unusual in the fact that they've been so mild and so snow-free. Snow is not a factor, is it really?
No, as a matter of fact, snow is generally helpful to us because it actually insulates the ground, so it doesn't get as cold. Gotcha. For us, grapevines really don't like it when we get into the low single digits. We can actually start having some vine death. Back in 2011, we actually lost large portions of our vineyards, up to 50% in some areas.
Wow.
Because we got down to -8 in the vineyard overnight. But that is very abnormal for South Jersey. I mean, as you know, I mean, we usually bottom out in the teens someplace, which is perfect. So a very mild winter like we had this year is good for us. And then the nice warm summers that we usually get in South Jersey are actually great for grape growing.
Now, as we record this episode, we're coming off a stretch in which it was in the 70s, and now it's dropped down 20, 30 degrees.
Right.
Do you see potential problems with that?
So
Unless it's prolonged. Like a prolonged freeze would not be good, obviously.
Yeah, honestly, right now the cool weather is fine, and it's actually, to tell you the truth, good, because we want to delay what we call bud break, and that's when basically the vine buds actually start to open and grow for the first time, and you start getting those kind of baby leaves coming out of them. When that happens, the grapes are now susceptible to frost. So what we were hoping to do is delay bud break as long as possible. We usually see bud break around April 15th, which is perfect because we usually don't see a frost after that here in our area.
True. Good point.
But with that warm weather we've had the last couple of weeks, grapevines are waking up. We can see the sap flowing from all of the pruning wounds that we have, so they literally start dripping. That's telling us that the vines are waking up. So we could actually use a couple of weeks now of some cooler weather to slow them down.
Interesting. Okay.
So that they don't, the only thing that would be hazardous is if we got one of those, like if we got into the teens now, that would probably be problematic because the vines are waking up and they're no longer as resistant to the very cold weather of winter anymore.
Do you walk out into the vineyards every so often? I mean,
very
I guess
often.
you do, right?
Yep, very often.
That's amazing.
Yeah, this time
These
of year.
are your babies out here.
Exactly. This time of year, we're watching them pretty closely because we want to see what they're doing. We want to see when they're going to wake up.
Right.
We're finishing pruning, so pruning is pretty much complete at this point. We're doing our final tying, that kind of stuff. And we're putting down a number of different things to help us in the season. We've just put down compost through the entire vineyard. We do a lot of composting here. We don't like to use chemical fertilizers if we can avoid it. So we use mostly compost from both the leaf yard waste that a lot of people put out at the front curb. We compost that down. And we also have horse farms in our area that we use. And then, of course, all of our winemaking waste, so the grape skins and seeds and pulp and all that kind of stuff, they go out into the compost and be blended in.
Wow, that's amazing. How many employees you have altogether here?
Oh, we're about 60 employees total.
Do you have that many?
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a lot of things going. You have a full kitchen.
Yeah.
Obviously, which is extremely popular. We're here around a little bit in the mid-afternoon, and there are still many, many people here dining and just enjoying themselves and having a good time.
That's right, enjoying some lunch with some good wine.
Absolutely, that is amazing. Wow. So many wineries in the area. Is there something that you feel, I'm putting you on the spot here, that kind of sets you apart from some of the others?
Oh, wow. I mean, one of the
That's a difficult question, I know.
Yeah, it is a difficult question.
Don't want to put you on the spot,
obviously, one of the main things that you just mentioned is the fact that we have a full wine bar here. So most of the wineries in the area do either some kind of tasting or do flights that you could come in and sample their wines. We, of course, do that, but you can also stay. You can enjoy some really great food. We have live music or trivia or other entertainment 5 days a week, so Wednesday through Sunday. We always have something going on. As a matter of fact, this week we're actually doing one of our wine dinners, which we do periodically throughout the year. And our chef Ian comes up with a wonderful menu, usually based upon some kind of cuisine. So this year we're doing this month we're doing Spanish cuisine, so he's doing all sorts of tapas. And then we have a number of somms, including me and my father, that go through and we taste everything. Really tough job. And we do all of the pairings to match wines, so you have a really good experience.
I like that because, unfortunately, there are pairings that don't always go together. I'm not saying here, obviously, but I'm talking about some of the other experiences I've had. I've seen cases of a menu being developed and a beer just matched to it without trying the food ahead of time, or vice versa. And they're not compatible always.
Right.
So I'm glad to see that there's a give and take and there's camaraderie going on. You guys are putting your heads together to decide what works.
And to me, that's also besides, you asked me earlier, what drew me to wine versus beer versus spirits, because I do enjoy all of those other things. To me, what really is different about wine is the fact that it's a pure agricultural product. It's directly made from the grapes, and wine is food. So it's best served with food.
What advice would you give to someone who is a newbie into wines, wants to learn a little bit more about wine? What would you tell them?
Oh, honestly, the first thing I would tell them to do is actually go visit as many wineries as you can, because what they're going to do is they're going to walk you through a tasting. They're going to point out wines that you might like, and then they're going to educate you on the wines. So you can learn, about the wines, but you can also learn about your own preferences and figure out what you enjoy, where you should be heading.
When I was here filming with you for WHYY, I learned so much in talking to you. I'd never been to a winery. Actually, I've been to one winery in the past, but I'd never sat down and talked with an owner as I did with you, and I learned so much from you. I mean, I didn't know about the correlation between, as you mentioned earlier, between the climate here, the microclimate here, and what's going on in Bordeaux, France. I mean, that was fascinating to me. I happened to mention it to someone yesterday too. He goes, "No, it can't be the truth." I said, "Well, this is what I was told by the owner, and it is true."
Yeah, and actually, if you think about Bordeaux as well, Bordeaux is pretty similar to New Jersey in the fact that it's a peninsula. So it's surrounded on three sides by water. You know, they've got a river. Just like us on one side, and then a large body of water on the other.
I assume you've been there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we actually
fairly regularly.
Not regularly. I
past.
wish I could go more often. But we actually studied with the University of Virginia, and we went on a study tour to Bordeaux, where we got to visit a number of wineries. We did 2 or 3 a day, and speak with what in France they don't actually call it a winemaker. They call it a technical director. He's the person who directs all of the winemaking activities.
Okay.
We got to meet with them, kind of pick their brains about how they make wines, and kind of learn the secrets of Bordeaux winemaking.
So getting back to the newbie, the person that's just learning about wine, come into a winery, maybe try a flight, talk about some of their preferences, and then that's how they would maybe match up a bottle to take home with them?
That's a great way to start. I mean, especially if you can do a tasting at one of the tasting bars.
Yeah.
So if you come into our place and you do a tasting at our tasting bar, we pair you with one of our tasting room staff. They'll actually walk you through our entire menu and try to select wines that fit your preferences. And then after that, of course, they'll tell you all about the wines. They'll guide you if you tell them, like, well, this one really isn't my style. I like more of this. They'll guide you and try to help select wines you really like. And then, of course, if you find some great stuff which you like, which I'm sure you will, you can go home with a couple of bottles.
Curious, several years ago, maybe about 10 years or so ago, I was in Philadelphia at an Italian restaurant that specialized in wines. And the sommelier there asked me, he said, "Well, what kind of beers do you like?" Knowing I'm primarily a beer drinker.
Right.
And in mentioning that, he was able to match me up with a wine that worked for me. Recently. It happened to be, by the way.
Yeah.
But I thought it was curious. He, again, presented me with a flight.
Yep.
And he said, "Try this." And he explained what I was going to be drinking and how it may be the correlation between that and beer. It was a fascinating experience. I learned an awful lot from doing that, from working with someone that's educated in the process.
That's a great way to do it. That's actually why most of our wine tasting staff are SOMs, because they can actually walk you through that process. And that's what I find very interesting as well, is we often get a lot of couples who come in, and the wife's there because she wanted to do some wine tasting, and the husband will walk up and say, "I'm a beer drinker."
Okay.
And that doesn't stop us at all.
Do you like the challenge?
We will always find something that the beer drinker will like.
Is
we
that
always
right?
find something.
Yeah. So if I came in and said, "Well, I like Belgian ales," you would know where to take me.
Absolutely.
In fact, I do love Belgian ales.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the French, going back to the French, make good beers also. They make fantastic beers. They're under-publicized here, unfortunately, but there's some great beers coming out of certainly that same region. What are you excited for in the future? What do you see happening in the future?
Wow!
Sharrott Winery?
So we've actually.
How many years have you been in existence, first of all?
Oh, 20 years.
20 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you see projected in the next 5 years?
Started in 2003, so we actually just last year celebrated our 20th birthday. But yeah, what I'm looking forward to, we have a couple of things happening right now. Is we just planted about 16 acres of grapes over the last 3 years. So we've expanded our vineyards dramatically. We're going to see a lot more of our own fruit, turning into great wines. We've got some older blocks of vineyard that we planted a few years ago that are really starting to kind of show their own. Older grapevines tend to make better wines, so we're very happy that some of these blocks that were definitely going into our premium wines already are also producing really nice stuff. And honestly, what's happening in the industry in general is all of the producers that have come on in the last 10 or 15 years along with us have really elevated the industry, and we're seeing better and better quality coming out of New Jersey than we've ever seen before. So I'm very excited to see what the future brings as far as great wines here in Jersey.
From what I hear and read and when I talk to people, New Jersey wineries do have a good reputation.
Oh yeah.
And it's growing.
Right.
I
mean, back, like I said, about 20 years ago when we first started, most people were looking for kind of inexpensive sweet wines. And we didn't make a lot of that. We have a couple of sweet wines to, when people come in, we have something for everybody's palate. But what we really want to make is we really wanted to make kind of those premium dry wines, and they've really caught on in the last decade or so.
So you're saying that preferences are changing or evolving, if you will?
I think both preferences are changing, and I think also the customer base for New Jersey wineries is changing. People are discovering the quality of New Jersey wine, and they may have been drinking California wines or Napa Valley wines, previous, and now they're discovering that some of the wines in their own backyard are fitting that mold that they're looking for.
I would say it's important that people support the local industry, the local wineries, because there's so many good ones coming out now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've always kind of said everybody's kind of been on the bandwagon of eat local, those types of things. But for the longest time, it wasn't. Drink local wasn't kind of part of the vernacular.
That's true.
So what we're starting to see now is that, along with the kind of craft beer explosion that we've seen in New Jersey and the distilleries now in New Jersey, people are also realizing that you can't get any more local than a New Jersey winery, because most of the stuff going into the craft beer and distilled spirits is not actually grown in New Jersey. But New Jersey wine is kind of grown and made right here.
Great point. We want to go over to the website, and that's sharrottwinery.com. I'm going to spell that because people say, how do you spell Sharrott? Sharrott. Winery.com. And Larry Sharrott, I had the pleasure of speaking with you today. Thank you so much. Great insight. And I think I'm going to belly up to the bar and maybe do a tasting before I leave.
Sounds good. Let's get some wine in front of you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. See you next time on the